What's up, everyone? Welcome to another segment of The Vault. And yes, we were not done with the story, so I have him back in. Mr. Craig Locicero back in The Vault. Good to have you in.
Great to be here again. And now your spider's cool to me, so
everything's good.
I've made friends with your dogs and your spider.
I know. The dogs are no problem. So, hey, man. So many great comments, so many great things from the first interview. People were really riveted on the story. Thanks for telling us all that. I know we have this whole second part left to go. We left off there and for the whole reason. So there was a couple of things we're going to touch on, though.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's like sitting on a couch. It's like a metal couch getting fucking this stuff off my chest. But I think the reason why people even care, I mean, I can't really tell you specifically, but maybe it's because a lot of this history was buried. You know, like a lot of the stuff with Forbidden in particular just never quite got out there because of the timing. So we were a band of like just being behind the time, you know, like we're just.
Well, I did read a comment that somebody said, "Wow, I've seen interviews and knew bits and pieces, but I never really got to know the Forbidden story like this." And I think that's the case with maybe some bands, not necessarily with us because there's so much press on Exodus, and it's been that way from the beginning. But for you guys, you really kind of have to search for it, especially now. And there's a lot of new fans that are interested in Forbidden and want to know, the legacy's there, bro. You know?
Yeah, no pun intended. Anyway, it is really it's an honor, man. I mean, I people say things like, "Oh, it's humbling," and it is kind of humbling because you don't even know that many people care, and and your shows it's coming up, so those things will exist for a long time.
That's the greatest thing about this.
As you build,
this is timeless material for anyone. In 2 years you can see your interviews that we did, and people are still going to get the history out of it. That's why I think I suppose
a Forbidden fan is fucking dedicated and loyal, and so this is kind of interesting to them. And I just wanted to reiterate a couple things. I'm trying to tell the truth the way I remember it. Some of my timelines of like month here, month there, like that's who the fuck am I? I don't like.
Well,
that's
why I
think
keep asking
give
me a timeline, but I just want an estimate, basically, just to like I was probably around here, around there. It gives people a good idea of what they were doing at that time. It gives them kind of relates it to where well when Craig was getting out of high school, man, I was just getting into high school. I just already graduated, so it kind of puts them in an age perspective of how we were doing this and when we were doing it. So
I mean,
you don't have to be perfect on
no,
that, bro.
I mean, when you're 15, everything's kind of a blur, and I really didn't start growing up until like mentally. I didn't really start growing up until after Forbidden ended. But the last thing I want to say about those interviews, as I want to say, I never got to really say that how good Matt Camacho became. Because Matt is a fucking killer bass player and underrated. And what's funny is that he just wasn't really appreciated as much when we were in the middle of it, because he went from just learning how to play bass to having to play the shit we were playing, which was fucking hardest shit I've ever played still, and it was all insane music. And the guy, so Matt was like catching up, but then he caught up, and then he got really fucking good. And I want to make sure everybody knows. And when you watch Matt play now, that he took a few years off and came back, he's fucking great. Like, Matt is actually a better bass player than I think he's ever been right now.
I don't think I would ever envision Forbidden without Matt.
I don't want to envision Forbidden without Matt.
Makes any sense? Or Russ, you know what I mean? For that
Matt and Russ are people like to hang on to, well, this guy from that era and this guy from that era. That's great. And you have your favorites. Like, we all got our favorites. We like our favorite albums. We're nostalgic. We like things. But Russ and Matt are the two mainstays. We're the OGs. Russ and I technically, but Matt was right there from 1986 and was never not there.
I agree. So
he's important as anybody in the
I
whole
would
story.
miss his head banging if I would
even
miss
when he was bald.
I don't care. I would still miss it.
When he went to that,
it there.
We did a tour later, and he showed up to rehearsal a couple days before with a shaved head, and we're like, whoa, like before that he had short hair, then he shaved his head. And I was like, dude, you look like Tupac for sure.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. Anyway, so yeah, let's move on. What do you want to talk about first?
I'd say let's pick up right where we were, right as you were getting out of Forbidden, and then it went to Man Made God, and you had a lot of experiences, great experience with man. You worked with Rick Rubin, so I want you to just talk about that and do basically what it's rolling. Let's go all the way.
You hit it on the head.
We're gonna bring it up to Dress the Dead. So let's go.
Well, this is another.
Right?
I guess this is another Forbidden history part because a lot of people don't really understand what happened when Forbidden broke up because there was no real internet at the time that we were paying attention to, and as I alluded to in the last part of the interview, I really was looking for a fresh start, and isn't that a cat litter, by the way? Fresh start, or is that Fresh Step? Oh well,
I thought it was a cat food. Fresh Start, or is it? Maybe
might be a douche.
I was just gonna say it's Massingale, right? Fresh Start, when that thing smells like a fish.
Yeah. Well, there you
Sorry,
go.
guys.
I was running away from that fishy smell that it was left behind. Because at the time of Forbidden, it ended. It was not enjoyable. I mean, we worked really hard on Green. As I told you, we were gonna try to attack. We were extra pissed off. It was very focused and like caveman. And then once the Man of War tour was offered to us, I said that was that. So that's where we left off, right? And so Matt and Steve convinced me that they're going to come along no matter what happens. And I was convinced that I wanted to reach out to Mike Sullivan, who played in the band Level out here in the Bay Area, which was I thought they were fucking great. I thought Level was it was exciting. I didn't really know him. I knew that he had substance abuse problems, and I thought,
who doesn't?
yeah, well, his were a little different than our friends, our acquaintances. It was pretty heavy. But I loved his creativity, man. Speaking of creativity and substance abuses, that's not an abuse though. This is legal in California. But I think I just was really looking to do something adventurous, dude, and I didn't know what the fuck it was going to be. I didn't know. I jumped out of the fucking plane, and I didn't know where I was going to land. I didn't really have a parachute, and we started with this idea of me pulling in Mike, and then the first phone call I get from anybody when they heard about it was from Aru Luster. And Aru, who I knew from Vegas, I actually knew him, met him at a party in Vegas when I was back visiting my first summer back. We hung out. I heard of Pestilence. I helped bring Pestilence out here with Marco Barberi was reaching out to me about bringing him out, and so we had a history. And he was in the Horde of Torment later, and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I if you're doing something new, I want to do something new." So that's what we started as, and then he's the first one to approach me with the name Man Made God, and I'm like, "Oh, it'd be great if it was just 2 words instead of 3." Because it's more ambiguous. I'm all about ambiguous and balance. And so I immediately yeah, 2 words, because you don't want to make the statement man-made God because it kind of boxes you in.
God.
Man-made God, which means everything. It means all the things we fixate upon.
And what year is this now?
This is 97.
This is now 97.
It's like probably the beginning of 97 or
And
middle of 97.
Goodbye. And as far as you're concerned musically, Forbidden, this is not a direction of Forbidden. We are not going to do anything in that. And
I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do.
But not that.
Not that. And as I told you in the last episode as well, when a band like Radiohead they came into my life at the right time. I never ever tried to sound like Radiohead ever, but I just loved the adventurousness of it all. I just loved that they weren't, they could just throw color out there. And so it was like, well, maybe I could throw some color of my own kind. I'm this riffing dude. It's going to be heavy, and it was. And when I first started writing songs, I went and bought a guitar. It was, I was looking around for new stuff. I'm like, I got to have a new sound. I don't want to use these Langner preamps anymore because they sound super tight and metal tight. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I went looking around for amps and guitars, and I went to Guitar Showcase and bought my first Les Paul, which is one of the good ones. Like it was a 90. I think it was a 95, which is like the end of the run that Les Paul had in the 90s. And fuck, man, I just was like, okay, I wonder, I mean, I had another SG that was a 62, which is technically a Les Paul for all you guitar guys. A 62 SG was called a Les Paul. It was a different one. So I started writing with that, and I just kept tuning down just lower and lower and lower, because I knew bands like Korn and all that stuff, but I wouldn't want to do that. But I was just curious what
But
would
it's
happen.
heavy.
But it was heavy, so I ended up dropping it all the way to A. And then that Les Paul came along, and then I had an identity of like the tone with the Paul was better than the tone with the SG Paul, and that's where that whole thing started. So everybody's like coming into practices, and I'm writing these riffs, and no one's guitar is ready for that. You got to set your guitar up. Like no one was doing that, dude. It was like nobody was tuning quite that low. Like nobody, not even Machine Head was tuned that low. It was low, and just some amazing things started happening with music. And it wasn't until we pulled Mike Sullivan into the room, who I dubbed him at the time Heroin Mike. I thought I could change him. Matt had warned me because he knew him. He said, "Man, it's really hard, dude." He's like, "You're gonna get frustrated some days, because he knew him really well from Level, and Paul Perry was in Level, and good friends of ours, all those good dudes in that band." And I was naive enough to know or think I didn't know anything. See, that's where I was. I didn't know anything. I wanted to do something. I didn't know what it was. I wasn't really mature mentally. I was ready to take this leap, and then I do it with a guy with a substance abuse problem, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. But what I can tell you was those writing sessions were everything I was looking for, because we weren't we had no preconceptions. We had no idea of specifically what we wanted to sound like. It's just,
but heavy. I mean,
it was heavy,
obviously
dude.
heavy.
Oh no, it was
Heavy.
really
Rock and roll heavy. And,
it was no rock and roll came later with that band. It was really, really heavy, and it was it had this crazy. Mike's vocals were odd, they were otherworldly, but he was a genius. Like a lot of these guys, they get into that drug, and it was just this tumultuous back and forth of like great creativity, and then where's he at, flakiness, like what's going to happen. But one thing that when we were writing songs, I remember one day I had something I fucking loved, and I was like, this song is going to be and then Mike's all, I don't know, man, I don't know, I'm not really feeling it. I'm like, well, you gotta feel it, dude. This one's gonna be great. He goes, Craig, and he said something wise to me that I've taken to this day. And this is the best part about working with Mike Sullivan. He said this one comment that stuck with me. He said, "There's always gonna be a million great riffs after the last one, so just file it away." I'm like, boom. My hang-ups were over. I didn't hold on to the idea of somebody's not inspired by something, and it doesn't grab on to the majority in the room, and you don't have something, some songs take work. Some songs take 5 minutes to write.
Oh, yeah,
Some
sure.
songs take fucking months. Some songs take years. You come back to it later. But it just gave me a really refreshing point of view of how to jump into this thing without worrying about it. So that was what was cool about Man Made God in the beginning. And we started playing shows, and, it was like, people were like, whoa, you don't know what to make of this band. Like, we didn't sound like anything with Mike singing. He had do you ever see him live with the old days when he had the giant effects?
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, dude. It was all it was like.
But that was kind of the era with Level and those kind of bands. There was era where there's a guy on stage that did that, and some of the singers did the kind of effects.
Yeah,
thing,
like a little Perry Farrell.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, all it was like 2 quadriverbs, an older one and a newer one, and they sounded bad. But it was his tone, so he went with that for a while, and people were just like, what the fuck, man? He's singing cool, but those vocals sound fucking weird. Everything was weird, dude. It was a cool time for me, because I didn't give a fuck, and I didn't know, where, like as I said, I didn't know where it was going to land. And eventually,
Now, you were just writing, like, how many songs did you get before you started landing, or did you go
there's
for
more
a
to
while
it.
before
It was a
you
minute,
even...
dude. We wrote amazing songs. I have cassettes of fucking some of my best, dude, some of my best riffs, dude. And some of that shit actually made it into
record.
Some of it made it into Spiral Arms,
Really?
Like some of it did at the beginning when I was writing most everything. That's what it did. We'll get there, but we got to a point where we were starting to get a little attention, and people were actually checking us out and trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, still with Mike Sullivan. And then
And this is we're now into 98 by now,
We're
right?
into 98, yeah, and we're
And you've been a band together for how long
not
now?
even a year.
Not even a year.
Not even a year.
No
We're-
gigs yet or anything,
No, we
right?
played some gigs. We
You
played
did do
our
some
first one we
shows.
did was like probably Club Chaos. So we played the Cocadree a bunch. We played Slims with Merv a couple times.
Oh, really?
Transmission
Okay.
with Merv. We did a lot with
So you
with
were
Mike.
playing. You were playing in that year with Mike. You were
Yeah,
playing.
at 98 and 99, we got more gigs when we played the Cactus Club a bunch of times. This is with this lineup. And then Logan and Machine Head split. And, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wonder what's going to happen next, I didn't know what Machine Head was going to do because I knew they were, like, there was always something internal going on with that band at that point. As big as they were, we knew in the Bay Area, like, there's always something going on there, it's like, so I didn't know what was going to happen there. And then one day, Aru comes to practice and basically tells us, I'm going to join Machine Head. And no one got mad. Like, that was one of those moments where no one was mad. It was more like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. But I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. I've never not had a guitar player. Here I go. I'm going to have to look for a guitar player again. Like, fuck. And as soon as it was all done, Matt and everyone said to me, no, we're not looking for a guitar player. You're going to play guitar. I said, well, of course I'm going to play guitar. You're the only guitar player we're going to have. We got a show next week at the Cocadree. You could do it. And you know what? To be honest with you, dude, that was the turning point of me growing musically, really. Because
was that the confidence boost you needed, though? You think
dude,
is that what it was?
I don't know if it was a confidence boost as much as like pulling the net from under you. And you don't have anything to lean back onto. Like when Aru played with us, he was more of a rhythm guitar player, just held feedback and stuff. But I know, that something that really triggered and clicked in me was I want to hear two parts still. So I figured out how to do things with my fingers where I was playing two parts, which I still do to this day. Like I play chords that other guys don't. And if I sit down with somebody, the only band that I think even that I've seen recently that uses as much kind of the same stuff as I do is Mastodon. And they aren't aware of anything I was doing back then. It was just kind of those guys just have that same kind of pull. Or they play
That's
two
their
parts at a
attack.
time.
That's just
their
their
thing.
attack.
Yeah, that's their thing. So, I started inventing something. I was doing something new. Not many people were paying attention to it at the time, but we started getting better gigs as soon as Aru left. The band started elevating, and then to fast forward it, eventually it just came to a point with Mike where we just couldn't follow him around anymore. There's too many ups and downs, too many confrontations, too many I swear I'll never do it again. And these are the things you learn, like with somebody who's addicted to that particular drug.
Sure.
It's always
really
a constant
anything,
flow.
but especially that one. Yeah,
That's the worst, dude. And I love the guy. I mean, I really did. But it was hot. It was cold. It was brutal. It was. Sometimes he'd get a little violent. Like you don't know what he was going to do.
Ugh.
So once, but I got to say, in the meantime, towards the end of that run, Matt was starting to get really frustrated with Mike and music in general, and he was just starting to think about going back to school. If you remember, he went to college. He went to SF
That's
State.
right.
He went, yeah.
Isn't that when the hair got cut too? I think, or
Not at first.
Not at
he did that
first.
after he left, but he did. He ended up leaving, and that's where I needed to look for a bass player. So that was, I'd only checked out a couple guys. One was Uriah Duffy, Uriah, who's phenomenal, dude. And he was a young kid back then, just a thumper, just like, I was like, holy shit, this guy's fucking now, he was in Whitesnake for many years, like later, but I loved him. I was like, dude, you're killer, man. Like, you should join this band. He's like, yeah. I'm like, but I mean, only this band. He's like, no, I don't do that. He said, I don't know how to be in one band, bro. I'm like, fuck. And it was funny. I just played with him last week. We were just laughing about it. I'm like, yeah, remember when I tried to tie you down?
God, I hate that. With me personally, you have to be tied down with me. If you're in a project with me, I need your full focus.
Well, that's not always what we get. So when we, anyway,
if I have control, I do.
yeah, with him, I mean, what was I gonna fucking say, dude? But anyway, I continued looking, and then I remember seeing Jimmy Walker play with Scorched Earth Policy, and he was also in, what the fuck was he in? Method before that, and they did European tours and stuff, But I remember in Scorched Earth Policy, he had the long hair, and he's fucking raging stage presence, dude. I was like, oh, this guy. I'm like, I should talk to that guy. I don't really know him, but I reached out to Jimmy, and he immediately was like, I love your band. I've already learned your demo. I was like, really? He's like, I know your demo. He's like, I can come out when you want me to come out. So he's all excited. And then he comes in the door and then he meets Mike. And he's like, oh, fuck. I mean, he knew, but he didn't know. And then he ended up giving Mike a ride home that night. He calls me the next day. He's like, dude, what am I getting into?
Hot. That's awesome.
Yeah, so Jimmy did love the band enough to do that. So he joined, and then Mike got worse, and the chemistry got better with James. He was so good with us. And Mike ended up, like, disappearing about 2 weeks before we were supposed to play with Merv at the it was going to be for New Year's Eve.
So 99, 2000?
Coming into 2000,
Wow.
coming into 2000, yeah. It was going to be New Year's Eve with Merv at the Slims, and we didn't know where Mike was. So we're like, oh shit, man, what are we going to fucking do? You know what? We didn't know what the fuck. So I just said, why don't we just do the show without him, and we'll just put this Captain Kirk cutout I have up here, and then we were going to hang a sign that said, you could be here.
Nice.
Or no, this could be you.
This could be you.
So Merv finds out, dude, and Jeff Gomes calls me and goes, dude, what the fuck, man? I fucking heard that, Mike's not going to fucking play. So, dude, you can't just fuck. What are you fucking? He's yelling. It's my best buddy, just yelling at me like Jeff does. Oh, fucking, what the fuck, man? God damn it. I'm like, dude, I mean, we're just going to go for it. He's like, dude, I don't think that's going to work. Luckily, that very same day, Mike called me again, as he would on the phone bill. Hey, it's like just like this super deep voice. He's all, so I really want to do the show. I'm like, fuck, dude, you disappeared, man. So we ended up doing like one practice, and what's funny about the effect unit I was talking about, so Reese Roberts, who was doing our sound back then, knows that we were going to let Mike go. We're just going to let him go after this show. We made a decision. We're going to find somebody else.
Even though he called you that day.
Yeah, dude, it wasn't enough.
It was already done.
Yeah,
you're going to let him do the show because it's better than the cardboard cutout, but right?
Right. It was much better than cardboard cutout. But Reese had said to us,
I think the cardboard cutout.
It would have been. Well, we were interesting, but it would have only really been a.
It was Captain Kirk.
3-piece. It was Kirk. Yeah,
I think that would have been.
That's me all the way. If you know me,
fucking cool.
Yeah, it would have been cool, but Mike was cooler because what happened is Reese made him. I shouldn't say that. He outsmarted him, and that effects unit. Reese decided, he's like, I'm not going to let him use that for the last show. So he's back there at the where Slims is. He's back there. I'm having a problem working this thing out. I really can't make it work, man. We don't have any more time. You guys gonna be all right? And then Mike's like, it's fine. So we did the show. Probably Mike's best show. His voice sounded fucking killer because he wasn't affected with too cheap effects. And then we had to let him go, and it was a great show for us. And I told him after the show, I said, Mike, I'm sorry, but we can't talk about the future because there is none. He said, I really don't need to hear that right now. I'm like, you really do, because there's nothing to really talk about beyond tonight. You left us hanging one too many times.
So we can't trust you, right?
It's very sad. It's very
too
sad.
bad. And I think that's the case when you get to a lot of fans don't know why bands can't work or things like that. They don't understand. I mean, I remember when I took over for Paul in Exodus, a lot of the reason why is because they couldn't trust if he was going to be there or show up. I mean, Bailoff was notorious for that. Loved Bay, I loved him to death, but Paul had trouble showing up to practice and doing things like that. And at that point in time, they wanted to move forward as a professional band and a unit, and they needed guys, a guy that they can, that was going to be there. And they saw me in Legacy, and that's kind of how that hooked up.
They needed a professional.
Somebody who's going to, who wanted it and wanted to show up. Right. So
just to get off subject for a second, I was just watching video of when you guys were on the Pledgers tour playing the Astoria.
Yes.
Fucking killer, dude. Yes. You guys were those guys just to dart from side to side. It was fucking nuts.
Darting.
Yeah, when we toured with you, I remember
they're darters.
The process.
They used to jump on the drum.
But day one,
do a little splin and then
there'd be like you'd have a certain amount of energy the first day, and then by day 5 you're like kind of standing there, and then day 6 you're back on the energy.
Oh yeah, sure. It's just a cycle. And
it's the cycle. I knew the cycle.
You know the cycle.
I know the cycle.
That's how the cycle works.
So anyway, if
anybody knew the Exodus cycle.
Oh yeah. So it was, it was a cool show. It was over. And then I think actually before that we were.
Did you have a vocalist in mind? Did you? Have
what? That's
else?
what I was going to say. We were thinking about doing the change, and we'd looked in a a couple of trades. One of my friends, Gary Metrovich, actually sent me an ad for this guy who said he was looking for a band with the power of Zeppelin and the diversity of Tool. Or was it the diversity of Zeppelin? Diversity of Zeppelin and the power of Tool. And I was like, that sounds interesting. I'm not really a Tool guy, but maybe that could be interesting. So I remember leaving I called the guy and I left him a message. I'm like, hey, my name's Craig, blah, 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 blah. Give me a call back. Didn't hear from him. I was like, what the fuck? And then the show happened. And then I'm like, I'm going to call this guy back. So I called him and left him another message. And then he calls me back. He's all, dude. He's all, the first time you called me, you didn't leave me your number. Like, oh, yeah.
So you just assume that your
Stoner.
Phone
So it sounded like you were chewing something. I was probably chewing broccoli because I used to eat a lot of broccoli. I mean, like Stoner Craig just like slipped it. That guy his name was Mike Reed. And he came down to the studio, and we had all this music. I had started writing like a whole new batch when Mike Sullivan was leaving, and I was like, I had more inspiration than I've ever had in my entire life, dude. I had this huge influx of like super melodic, creative. It was still
Were you
heavy.
writing lyrics as well with this stuff? Any of this stuff, or was it just
Mike
more
Sullivan?
music?
There really wasn't lyrics. He'd make sounds. You'd cue up the mic, and he'd be like, yeah, yams. It was just like weird shit. Yeah. Once in a while, you'd say something. It was weird, dude. It was a weird phase. But no, I didn't start. I was taking a break from lyrics. I was taking a break from that. I was like looking for a front man that was going to do that for me. I didn't want to do everything like I was doing in Forbidden. It became a burden, and nothing against any of the guys, but it just became really, it dragged me down. It was just really hard towards the end. And so I was looking forward to having real singers. So this guy comes in and watches us play a few songs. And this is when we moved into Jackson Street. We were in that front room in Jackson to the left, that room that had the overhang. And
yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
We were making magic in that room. It was unbelievable creative explosion. Even before we had this guy come in, we played him a couple songs, maybe 3 or 4 songs. He was just like, he's like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. He's like, I can't believe this. I'm like, can you just get up and just step to the mic and just make some noises? And he wasn't super comfortable with it, but he did. And as soon as he started making noises with us, I was like, this guy is a fucking star. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, the purity and richness in his voice. It was very different because the shape of his mouth, every singer has a different kind of thing. So this guy had something, and, we jammed, he did that, then he took some songs home, then, he was kind of on the fence. He's like, I don't know, it's a lot of dedication to do this, but he ended up doing it. And he ended up coming back for writing sessions. I remember one, don't do this at home, kids. One, we had mushrooms. We said, we're going to just throw some shrooms out, and does everybody do some shrooms
I heard
tonight?
they're going to decriminalize that now.
Why would you do that?
I read it in the paper the past
I got
couple of
nothing
days.
against,
They're actually going to decriminalize mushrooms. Any psychedelic hallucinogenics are now going to be legal.
Driving in mushrooms is
Well,
never...
I mean, driving in alcohol, driving in anything, driving in heroin,
mushrooms, dude.
driving on
the road's going to
cocaine,
take a different...
driving wired on crank out of your skull. Come on, all of them. They've all got their drawbacks to them.
I think acid and mushrooms could potentially be a really weird and deadly experience.
For me, are you kidding? I couldn't do that right too. Especially nowadays, I wouldn't even think of letting my mind go like that.
Well, here's where the shrooms come in. So we're starting to write these songs, and we're frying pretty hard. And I'm starting to. We're working back and forth. I'd work with Pan. I'd work with James. I would have a riff, and Pan would actually. He's a good guitar player too. It wasn't Pan yet. I'm sorry. This is where Pan happens. So I'm looking at his reflection on the wall, and this is really fucking weird, dude. And he's singing, and we're doing Swamp Water, which we just started writing this song, Swamp Water, which turned out to be one of our hits, if you can call him that. And it was just a magic moment, dude. And I see his reflection, and he's singing, and I see his chin, and I just see this like elongated chin, and I see horns pop out from his head, dude. And he looked just like Pan. Like, if you've ever seen Pan, the god
Pan's
Pan.
Labyrinth, I know Pan.
Yeah, Pan. He looked just like. I was like, and then after the song stopped, I'm like, dude. I'm going to look at that. And he looks at it. I'm all, you look like fucking Pan. He's all, that's a way cooler name than Mike. I'm all, you want it? He's like, yeah, I'll just be Pan. Literally happened like that. He's all, sounds cooler than Mike. Everyone's Mike. There's too many Mikes. He'd say things like, there's too many of this, too many of that.
Metal Mike.
Yeah,
Hence Metal Mike.
So, well, there's just so many Mikes. Microphone, But anyway. So that was a
Micro
very,
machine.
yeah, right.
Micronauts.
Micronauts. Oh, God. Yeah, I had a bunch of those.
We did an episode on toys. Believe me, he had them in here. Believe me.
Micronauts. Fuck yeah.
That's right.
That was my toy. That was Shogun Warriors. I'm all, fuck that.
Talked about
These
that
little
too.
Micronauts are great.
Talked about that too.
That's
yes,
fucking
we
awesome.
did. I had a toy guy in a
I'll go
couple
back
weeks
and look
ago.
through that.
Yes.
So anyway, I this is really only the beginning of a really cool thing that happens, because once that moment happened, once we realized there's true magic, there's true magic, and I've only felt that a couple times in my life, dude. It was then and it was later on. With Forbidden, we just had chemistry. It was crazy, but it wasn't like magic. I knew what magic was that moment with Man-Made God. When we started playing shows and people started seeing us with Pan, it was,
and we're in 2000 now. Where
we're in the year 2000. Yes, in the year 2000.
Summer.
No, probably winter.
Okay,
like
so
coming
at
into
the end,
January.
almost 2001,
January of 2000.
Oh, January 2000.
We have him in
so
the band.
right after Mike left, you kind of.
It was immediate. Like a couple days later, he was in the studio jamming
right
with
away.
us, and then we agreed, and then all these songs, dude, just dozens of songs, dude. I'd never written more songs, because that group was Steve Jacobs, and James Walker, and Pan. It was just a 4-piece, and it was like we were on fucking fire. That room we were in Jackson Street helped lend to the fucking magic. And I knew there was ghosts in there, and Faith No More wrote Angel Dust in there, and all these things were happening in that room. But there was a sound all of a sudden. It became more cohesive. The experimentation wasn't so much there anymore, as I had a style now that wasn't my Forbidden style, but it was a new style, and it was my own, and nobody else had it. And that was where it would start, and then all these fucking wonderful things would happen. And we only did a couple showcases. I mean, we were down in LA. We played I'm thinking, where's that one on?
So when did you start gigging again with him? Now
it wasn't long. We were gigging a couple months later. Yeah,
a couple months later, you're gigging.
Yeah, we did like Swiss Park in Fremont. We did I think we did Club Chaos again. We did the Coquetry a couple times. We got more shows with Merv. We were being offered really cool shit, but it all happened relatively quickly, Steve. It's just all of a sudden, we recorded demo. And we had Eric Kretz, who from Stuntable Pilots, co-produced it with Pat Coughlin, who produced Distortion and Green with us. And we went to San Luis Obispo. And once we laid that demo down and heard Pan sing to the mic, and everyone was just like, holy shit, this is fucking real. This is a rock band. This is had that Bad Company kind of real kind of tangible magic to it, dude. And it didn't take long, dude, until every fucking label was jumping at us. And it was a weird time, because I never in my life had I felt so confident in something that I didn't really give a fuck where it ended up going. I wasn't sure what label we were going to be on. I was like, I don't know, man. It's whatever's right, And then I'll never forget, we get I guess it was a letter from Rick Rubin saying he wanted to come see us, and he's going to send somebody out. And we'd actually done another demo, so we had 2 demos combined by then, and that one was done with Brian Joseph Dobbs, who ended up engineering our album.
So now 2 demos down the road.
2 demos, yeah.
Where you're still in 2000?
We're still in 2000.
Coming towards the end of it, though,
Coming
right?
towards the end, into 2000, coming into 2001, maybe even the very beginning of 2001. So the beginning of 2001, we get this, I guess, letter from Rick Rubin saying, he's interested in the band and he wants to send somebody out. And then phone calls happen. We had Cole Gill, if you remember Cole.
Yes, I do.
He was helping us.
Yes,
he was managing us Cole. At the time.
Yes, I do.
He was our day-to-day guy.
Right.
Because we didn't really have a manager, but he was I trusted him. So we're like, okay, well, that's cool. What's he done? My first thoughts, what's he done lately? Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. What's American done lately? I like the Black Crowes. Slayer was cool. I just had this attitude I'm not impressed, which is really weird now. But I wasn't. I was trying to keep everyone's Like, we don't need to worry about where we go yet. But this guy comes in to our studio. They send somebody out, right? And we're there waiting to have this guy see us. We know it's Americans coming to see us. But first this guy walks in, and he's all, this is so funny, dude. He's all, is this where the band Man-Made God is? And we're like, yeah. He's all, I'm the limo driver for Dino out there. He's all, I just want to tell you guys, from what I just heard, something wonderful is going to happen in here tonight. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Who sends a limo driver in to say this shit? I'm like, that's weird.
Did he preempt him to say that?
No,
or do you
he
think
didn't.
The limo driver said it on his own.
He said it on his own because he was talking about the band on the way over. What it turned out to happen is he wanted to make sure it was the right place. He's like, could you go in there and make sure this place is shady? It's Oakland. He was like, this is shady. I don't want to walk in the wrong building. So he said the fucking limo driver in. Yeah.
It's a fucking studio in Oakland. What do you expect?
Yeah, it smelled like fortune cookies too, right?
Well, because that's
cookie
right
shops
there. Yeah,
right
it's
there.
cookie shops right there.
Yeah, it's confusing. It's dangerous, but it smells so sweet.
It's Oakland. It's my home, baby.
So Dino comes walking in, and he's this very svelte guy with little black glasses, little, well camped, kind of balding, all black, down to the bottom, black, head to toe. Johnny Cash style, as we figured out later.
I like that.
Because American. Johnny Cash was on American. So we start blasting through songs, and we're just fucking killing it because we don't care. We don't care. We're not trying to impress him. We're just being ourselves. Just don't care. He's tapping away, dude, on his little fucking BlackBerry. And then I ask him after a few songs, I'm all, are you talking to Rick? He's all, oh yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. He's all, so here's what we want you guys to do. I'm like, oh, you want to talk? So we stop, we talk. I said, we need you guys to gather what gear you want to bring, and we're going to fly you down to Los Angeles in 2 days. I'm like, what? He's like, we're going to fly you to L.A., you're going to play for Rick. I'm like, with our gear? He's like, yeah. So our drums? He's like, everything you want to bring. So we brought everything but cabinets. They sent every fucking thing we had but cabinets down to L.A. to showcase for Rick, which we did in a fucking one of those big rehearsal studios. I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the larger ones where they had like kind of benches that went upward in there.
Like SIR, something like
Might
that.
Might have been an SIR.
Because they have one everywhere.
Few, yeah.
They have one in San Francisco, L.A., Chicago, and New York.
Yeah, they're all over the place. I'm not sure if it was SIR.
Studio like
I don't remember.
that, though.
But Kretz came, too. And, he wanted to be there because he was a big part of the band. This Stone Temple Pilots, Eric Kretz, that we're talking about. He was always really instrumental, like, in my history back then. He was very helpful. He loved the band. We were really good friends. So he shows up before Rick shows up. But this is a great story. And I'm going to make this real fast. We loaded in. We did sound check. We ordered Thai food. All right. Steve goes to the bathroom.
I was going to say, why did you do that to each other?
Steve goes to the bathroom. Rick shows up, walking in with a couple of his dogs, a couple of his assistants, his beard, and, there he is, his aura. And we're talking, and he's like, yeah, I'm really excited to see the band. I can't wait to check you out. I want to see what it's all about. And we're like, where the fuck? Where's Steve, man? We're like, we hear the bathroom fan. We're like, Steve, you in there? Oh. Dude, Rick Rubin's here. And Steve's having the shits in the bathroom. So we're like, what, dude, you got to come out.
Not a good idea.
Dude, it took like almost a half an hour to get him out. And he walks out. Everyone's like, this is like uncomfortable. We're hanging with Rick Rubin. Yeah,
Ass
sure.
on fire?
Yeah, well, I think he was like throwing up out of both ends kind of thing.
Oh, my.
So this is our drummer, the most physical guy in the band. So he's got white as a ghost. We've already had kind of like uncomfortable small talk with this guy that we weren't trying to really overly impress. But once you start sitting next to Rick for a long period of time, I was the only one who really had much to say to him. Everyone else is kind of just like, And then, of course, Eric Kretz, he's like, what are you doing here to Eric? And Eric's like, dude, I'm here to watch the paint peel off the fucking walls. And he's like, oh, okay. So that impressed Rick a little bit. So anyway, Steve comes out. Fuck, man. He looks like hell. And Rick's like, are you okay? Can you do this? He's like, oh, I have to, right? You're like, oh, wrong answer, but okay.
So I have to, right?
Yeah, like I don't have a choice. Oh, he feels horrible. No one's blaming him, dude. It's just
right.
It was bad timing.
It was a bad choice.
for all of us, it was a bad choice.
Thai food
but I
before
didn't
an
fuck with
audition?
anyone else. He had the bad, whatever it was. So we proceed to fucking blow through the set, and we do great, dude. We had a great set. And
How many
again,
songs did you play? Do you remember?
I think we played like 10.
So you did pretty much a full set.
Dude, we had
Was it live
we
performance
had 30
basically,
we had 30
or were you
songs
in
by
a
then.
room?
We had over 30 songs.
Were you in a room surrounded, like you were on a stage playing like you were playing?
It was
a gig,
it
or were
was
you
not
in
really a stage. It was like they had the seats. It was like benches looking down
But
on
it
us.
wasn't like a rehearsal studio. Like when we go to rehearse, we walk in and the guitar's facing this way and the drummer's there.
No,
and
we
you
were
know
all
what I mean?
facing towards him.
I see.
And they had us going through the PA. They had a guy mixing the whole thing.
So
and
it was
fucking,
pretty much a live performance.
Yeah, it sounded killer, dude. It sounded killer. And I was doing the low tune stuff, and I was also doing stuff just to drop D. It was like it was real, true fucking. It was just enough metal, but it was rock and roll. And Rick fucking loved Pan and me and our chemistry. So immediately, as soon as we're done playing, we go walking outside, and I'm talking to him like, "Hey man, so what has American done lately?" I gave him that whole speech. I'm like, "It seems like you guys haven't really done anything viable, or what's going on now with rock?" I'm like, I see you got Johnny Cash. I see all this. He's like, no, we've done a few things that are more obscure. We just did a band called Caius. Or no, it wasn't Caius. I'm sorry. It was what was that band that came out of Caius? I'm fucking blanking their name. I'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. But anyway, we just did that, and it was American Head Charge, and I still do Slayer, but I'm executive producing. I'm all, well, and this is funny. I go, well, it seems to me like you could use us as much as we could use you. And he's all, I think you're right. I'm like, so you want to do a deal? He's all, I think we should. I'm like, that was that simple, dude. I'm like, all right, we'll get.
We're in 2001. Maybe
We're in the beginning of 2000. Well, maybe beginning of 2001. Within the first couple months, dude, and then within 2 days, Eric Kretz gives us. Eric Greenspan is a lawyer. Greenspan has done he did the STP contracts, he did Chili Peppers contract, he did a lot of really, really big deals. So within 2 days, we're negotiating without a real manager, with just Cole Gill, for, a lot of fucking money, dude. Like, it was about $350,000 on the first run, right? So lifestyle change, we think.
People, you get to pay that money back. They give it to you, but remember,
right,
you get to pay it all back one way or another.
Recoupable, baby.
Anything you do. Don't think that you get $350,000 and life is fucking.
Oh, dude, wait till I tell you what.
You might think that.
Wait till I tell you what we really spent. So this whole fucking thing starts, dude. We're all of a sudden we go from not caring, thinking it's gonna be all right, to fucking now you're negotiating with Rick Rubin to be his most prized fucking band. All right, the standards were set high, dude. People don't realize a lot of this, and I understand why. Because by the time our album came out, we were almost broken up, because so much had happened between this magic moment, this amazing time, and the next thing. Because all of a sudden we're negotiating for this huge amount of money. We get what we want. We get everything we want. We get the amount of records we want. We get everything's laid out there perfectly. We still don't have a fucking manager, but you got a great lawyer. So we start pre-production, and we move out of our room, and all of a sudden moving out of Jackson Street felt fucking very alien. We didn't know exactly. That
Why
felt
did you
weird.
do that?
Well, I wasn't going to mention it, but when we were in Jackson Street, there was a lot of envy as to what Man-Made God had going on. And it got really weird in some cases. And we basically got ousted out of the room so another band could realize their dreams. And I don't want to mention anyone's names because they're all my friends. But at the time, it was like, it's time to live our dreams, bro. Like one of those moments. Like this room is that important. Like it was, dude. That room was really important. And that was made us comfortable. If we would have done our pre-production in that room, we would have had a better experience going into the studio than we did. But we moved into Soundwave for a while. We were on one of their uneven floors and recording everything on Pro Tools and still writing new stuff. It was still killer, but it just felt different. And then we end up going down to LA and doing pre-production, and we're in another one of those gunny sack rooms I think
How
we're,
much time is elapsing now? That you
not
guys,
it's not long, dude.
you're saying pre-production. Are you talking 2 months, 6 weeks?
No, man. Well, I think after we had the deal in place, we were already starting to do pre-production. We had Brian Dobbs along with us as producer / engineer, and Rick was executive producer. But he was super involved with us, dude. Well, I hear the horror stories about Rick never showing up. He wasn't like that with us. We spent time at his house. But that's one of the first things we did when we went down to LA. Is we went down to his house. We sat there. We talked about everything. We listened to music sitting on his couches. I was sitting right underneath the Big Bear. If you've ever seen pictures of his fucking,
I don't think so.
his library is like it's got this amazing fucking view of looking over into Hollywood, and then it's just all, dude, it's the shit. It's like it's the shit. It'll completely fucking woo, you get Svengali the fuck out of that place. So we were living this fucking dream, and it just didn't seem real, dude. It just seemed so surreal. But we're sitting there in his room having pre-production meetings, and this was a pivotal moment. This is what we called it the watershed moments in the last episodes. Watershed moment. We're listening to a song, and it's a pretty busy song drum-wise, and he stops the CD, and he turns around and he looks at Steve. He goes, Steve? He's all, metal drumming, bad for this band. He's all, you can't always hit your toms. Sometimes you got to lay it down. Like boom,
Speed
bap,
rock, yeah,
boom,
right.
boom, bap. And that wasn't something we were doing. We were writing all these super big, spacious riffs, but we were kind of taking up space with a lot of other shit. It was still stuff left over. But that fucked up my brother Steve's head. That fucked up his head.
Do you think because he's such an iconic producer, and coming from somebody like that, he felt maybe that you're stepping on my creativity as far as it's going. This is who I am, and this is how I speak my part, and it does work if you listen to the songs. And were you guys thinking that as well?
Well, we kind of tried to stick up for him, and then he made a case. He made his case to us about space between the riff and letting the vocals lay in the pocket, and not having a tom hitting between every vocal melody. So you're gonna have times for that. He's all, those are the instrumental times. He's like, your vocal times, we need to pull back some of this if you want it to sound as good as you want it to sound. He made his case.
What did you feel about that, though? Because you're basically the songwriter here. So what did you think Rick was, overstepping his boundary there, or did you agree with it, or you could see it either way?
That was the first of many compromises, and it wasn't the bad one, but the way it affected Steve was bad. I
guess it would be a little bit of a bad one if it did affect Steve.
It
that
did,
way,
dude.
Right?
It fucked him up well into the future, and then the entire recording process when we were in the studio actually making the record, and Brian. This is another thing. Rick Rubin was not in love with Brian Joseph Dobbs,
Really,
because he was Canadian. Brian worked with Bob Rock. He's Bob Rock's one of his two right-hand men. He was the main engineer, and he's he's actually from Regina, Vancouver, Regina, like that, all that whole northern. Regina's way up north, but anyway, he had a different kind of personality than Rick likes. Rick really likes assertive, and gravitas. He likes, Rick's the guy who's completely straight, who likes to hang out with people with drug problems because they have an edge, right? You go through history of the people he really hung out with, and he was straight, and just they were fucked up. So he didn't really vibe on Dobbs at all. So we had this whole push-pull with Rick and Dobbs, where Rick really didn't want to talk to him, so the notes were going through this guy Dino, and then it was just this weird. It was all
wow. So the communication process is not
Rick
what it should be on the level that these guys are doing their jobs at, basically.
Yeah. Oh, I just dropped.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Do you want to bring yourself back up?
Back up.
And he's back up.
Well, am I?
No, you just pulled the little
There I
thing.
am.
Yeah, see?
Now I'm back up.
There you go.
But anyway, so yeah, it was
My chairs.
they're very good. These are
They're
high quality
comfortable.
chairs.
Thank you.
There was a lot of it was the beginning of a lot of communication problems. It was the beginning of losing the essence of what we were to begin with, because there was so much floating around it. And dude, I could spend a long time talking about it, and I don't really think I should, but I'll just go to this. The recording of the album was harder than anything I've ever done. Not for me personally, because every fucking track I did, everything I did, dude, Rick loved it, and it was fucking easy. But it was all the other stuff, because when the drums changed, then the bass changes. Because everything we did was locked in.
Sure.
James and Steve had written. James writes incredible bass parts to this day. He really does. You could sing them all. They're all a separate song. So there's a whole change that happens and all this stuff. So we just had a lot of this fucking, last second changing stuff. Pre-production lasted about a month or a month and a half down in LA, and then we started doing the record, and then we'd record up to fucking 20 takes of a song with all these different, not just one way. Like Dobbs would come out and give him a bunch of notes, and we got these notes from Rick, and we'd send music to Rick immediately. Like as soon as we'd recorded something, we piped it to him digitally, and he'd get right back to us, and these detailed notes. I got a whole box full of notes from Rick Rubin, dude. I got a box full of them. And
Just
it was
let
all
the
about
songs go and be what they are,
Well, it was all about drums. It was all about
even
drums.
So, it's rock and roll. It should be.
Well, that's what he kept saying. It's rock and roll. It's not
okay.
metal. This was the tumultuous point with him, dude. This is like he's all, I love the metal influence. He basically loved the metal I brought to the band, and he wanted that to be the metal, and he wanted everything else to be pristine and fucking audible. And the end result was fucking pretty undeniable.
Like
yeah, it's like
really
it's
good.
cool, but there was some energy sucked out of it through this whole process. So, which brings me to, while we're in the studio recording, I get I don't remember if it's a phone call or a text, but they start talking about doing the Thrash of the Titans thing for Chuck. I'm like, oh, that sounds awesome. I'd love to be a part of that. But I don't know if I can yet, because I don't know. It came up relatively quick. Like Thrash of the Titans, I think I heard about it when we were doing pre-production. Then when we started recording, it all came together like fast.
They called me to do a legacy show. It went from, and the first thing I said was, Chuck's cool with that? They're like, yeah, they just want to do a benefit legacy show. Would you do it? And I go, yeah. And then when I signed on to it, they started growing, and then it turned into what it was, which actually worked out for everyone.
There you go. But, fucking, I got really excited about the idea of doing it, but I was like, I don't know exactly when I'm going to be recording or if I can come down to rehearse. But there was conversations between me and Russ and Paul, and we had Glenn ping-pong in between us, and he ended up causing all kinds of shit. It was just, he tried to take the whole thing over, and I told him, I said, listen, dude, I probably not going to be able to do it, because I'm going to be in recording my guitars that very week, and it was like $1,500 a day lock in.
Yeah, I know, when you lost to lock
yeah,
out.
it was
Yes,
a big fucking studio. And I said, I don't think I can do it. But you got to handle this. Like, don't piss everyone off, man. You're not in charge, dude. I basically backed out and said I couldn't fucking do it eventually. And whatever happened is kind of between those guys. But I remember hearing all the secondhand stories, and Paul again was fucking furious. And Paul was made to he didn't even open the show. I think that when Forbidden Evil started, what they call it Forbidden Evil, which is ironic, but Paul didn't. He had that guy Jeremy who played with Steve Vai. Glenn had him do it because Paul couldn't be at rehearsals because he was busy with Slayer until a certain day. But so that Glenn got offended. So there's this whole thing that happened when I wasn't even around, dude, and everybody assumed when the show came around that I just didn't want to be there because I didn't want to be a part of metal. Which is the biggest fucking insult, because I remember the day of the fucking show, dude. I probably finished my guitar tracks around 5 or 6, and Alice was visiting me down there. And I was like, fuck, man, if I could only been there to rehearse or just be a part of any of that, I would have fucking been there. And I told that to Dino, the guy from the label, and Dino's all, hey, he's all, Craig, these are the moments that stick in your head. He's all, it's small potatoes, Craig. It's not, it's small. I mean, no, it's not. It's my fucking past, and it's Chuck Billy, and it's a cancer. I'm like, dude, it's anything but small potatoes, man. But I can't be there, so it just feels weird. And I was just like, I understand. Dino's like, it just doesn't matter. He didn't understand. He just didn't get it. What we have.
Right.
Which,
if you're not in the fraternity and you're not aware of the fraternity,
yeah, I mean,
you don't know how the fraternity works,
Well, labels, back then too, they especially were ready to bury every era in the past and move on.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I was a part of the burial big time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we all were, and you know, But I mean, look at all this transpired so far. All this
Well,
forbidden stuff, and then all this, and then the beginning of Man May God, and then here we are in this fucking what's, like the ultimate dream for any musicians to have all these things around you coming together, which they were, but there was like so much stretching us out to our limit as far as what we could handle. We were living in the oak woods. We were, you know, I mean, I had my pill problem at that point. Like, it's the first time I could get that much Valium or that much. Like, why would you ever want all that? Like, everyone had a problem. We all had problems. We started to live the dream, dude.
We all had problems.
But we were living the dream, bro. This is what
We're still living the dream.
We thought we were living the fucking dream, but it wasn't the dream we perceived it would be. But at this time, we were still recording a record. We didn't have management. We still didn't have management.
Did you still have Cole?
Cole was the guy, and we considered him our day-to-day, but we wanted him to be the day-to-day to help management company, whatever one we wanted. So here's where it gets really weird. So we're still recording the record. We're doing this all on our own.
How long was the recording process, Craig?
Oh, dude.
How long was that? I mean,
it probably went from April or May of 2001 until the end or beginning of 2003 because vocals. And I could tell you that story, too.
So it wasn't like you guys just didn't go in the studio in 6 to 8 weeks and drums and bass
No,
and
dude.
did record and boom.
No, dude. Because that drum thing's changing. So, but once we got all that drum shit done, the bass and the guitar was relatively quick. But it was like I wasn't a kid in a candy store.
So wait a minute. From 2001 to 2003.
It wasn't the whole time straight through.
I was going to say because that's where the money went.
It's where a lot of the money went. Living in LA the whole time.
Fuck.
But we still didn't have management, dude. We're doing all this recording and fucking, and Pan recorded the vocals all the way through one time, and then Rick decided, I don't like the sound of that mic. And this is another moment, dude, where he goes, I like the performances so much, I wish I could keep them. But we're going to have to do them over again on a better mic. And I'm going to move you into another studio. He's all, in Pan, just take as long as you need. And I was like, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. And he said it. And I was like, and then, fuck, dude. So that took a while. But in between all this fucking shit, when we're still recording, we still don't have management. I got to emphasize, we still don't have management. Again, dude, every fucking manager in LA wanted a piece of it. Our shit was getting around these roughs. They did sound killer. Everything was fucking still badass, dude. And we didn't have management. So every manager was trying to fucking lock us down. And I won't get into the particulars about all these stories, but I'll say that it came down to a few, and Andy Gould was one of them that we were taking pretty seriously. And Doug Goldstein was another one we were taking pretty seriously, who did Guns N' Roses. And he was part of Rod Smallwood's Sanctuary. At that time. And Rod Smallwood and Doug Goldstein and Merck McCaudeley's all came out and fucking got right up in our grills about managing the band. And it's like, wow, this is fucking heavy. And then as well as that, we had little Andy Gould. So fast forward to the day we finally make our decision, we decided to go with Doug Goldstein. I go with my friend to the Rainbow that night, right? Oh, no, Andy Gould the day before. When we decided to go with Doug, the day before we even told Andy's, I'm going to have to back out. Sorry, I just can't do this. Right? This is all really interesting, dude. So, like, no problem. Like, in our head, we're like, all right, are you going to go with the other guy? It's fine. So I fucking go to the Rainbow with my friend, and all the managers are sitting at a table out front. All of them. Everyone we were talking to. I'm like, that's weird. And my friend, he's like, yeah, that's weird. Because he's kind of connected to a little bit of this whole story, too. So, hey, what's going on? So we're sitting at the table, I'm hanging out with them. Like, Smallwood's there. Doug wasn't there. Doug wasn't drinking or anything at the time, so he wouldn't go out and do that kind of thing. But it was like, Rick Sales and Andy Gould and a few other ones. I can't even remember them all. But I was just sitting there, like, fucking thinking, wow, this is weird. And then Andy Gould says from the other side of the table, he's like, hey, Craig. He's an Englishman. He's all, I'm really sorry about saying no. He's all, or that I didn't take the job, but you went to the right place. I'm all, we didn't make an announcement. I'm all, where did we go? He's all, You went with him. And he pointed to Rick Sales. I'm like, no, I didn't. We went with him. And I pointed to, Rod Smallwood. He's all, oh. And I didn't understand what the fuck happened, dude, for a while.
What, you didn't realize that at the table they were playing cards for you, right?
They were playing fucking cards, not at that table, but at Rick's house they had poker games. And I had met Rick at a Slayer show, and he had been getting our fucking roughs from Rick Rubin, who wanted him to manage us. Because his relationship with Slayer, and he was scared. Rick Rubin ended up being scared of Doug Goldstein because of his reputation of hanging guys out of windows to get paid. He was one of those old school managers.
I like the guy already.
Yeah, he was fucking rad, dude. GNR at their height,